Have you ever felt like you're fighting alone for something that deep down may already be over? There comes a moment, silent but heavy, when we sit on the edge of the bed, stare at the ceiling, and ask ourselves with a lump in our throat, is it still worth it? Or am I just postponing the inevitable, clinging to memories of what was once good, but today only hurts? The truth is that sometimes love becomes a field of doubt, and these are not small doubts. They are the ones that hit hard, that keep us up at night, and make us doubt even our own intuition. You realize that the routine has become silence, that the gestures of affection have disappeared, that the eyes no longer meet each other as they used to. And yet, there is something that holds you back. It could be the fear of starting over, the guilt of giving up, or that stubborn hope that things will get better. But what happens when that hope starts to hurt more than the truth? I know. It's not easy to admit that maybe it's time to let go. It is not simple to recognize that you have changed, that he has changed, and that perhaps you are no longer who you were in the beginning, but continuing out of fear, out of habit, or because of what others will think. That has a price, and often you're the one who pays. Therefore, before making any decision, it is important to take a sincere pause and ask yourself, am I here because there is still love, or because I am afraid of the end? And look, if you are in this confusing phase, where your heart is tight and certainties slip through your fingers, comment below on the word doubt. This isn't just a comment, it's a step of courage. It's you looking at yourself more truthfully, recognizing that you're in a difficult time, but that you don't need to go through it alone. And I will read every comment, because I know how important it is to feel that someone understands, that someone listens. This video is not just about relationships. It's about you, about what you feel, about how we learn to listen to ourselves amid the noise of expectations, fears, and broken promises. And it all starts here, in this uncomfortable question that you may have already asked 1,000 times in silence. Is it still worth it? Let's walk together towards this answer. There are times when the body gets up, but the soul doesn't follow. You go through the days with a smile on your face, but inside you carry a weight that no one sees. And the cruelest thing is that this tiredness is not physical. There is no medicine, there is no rest that can solve it. It's that silent exhaustion that builds up every time you try to talk and aren't heard, every time you propose something and feel like you're talking to a wall. You do your best, propose changes, look for solutions, try to rekindle a flame that seems to have gone out a long time ago. And yet, everything remains the same. Or worse, you feel like you're carrying this relationship on your shoulders, alone. Trying to keep something that has already lost its foundation standing. It feels like pushing a broken-down car up a hill, and the harder you try, the more you feel like you're not going to get anywhere. The wear and tear isn't just with others, it's with yourself, because a part of you begins to wonder if you're making a mistake in trying too much, in loving too much, in insisting when perhaps you should have already let go. And the truth, which almost no one speaks out loud, is that loving alone is untiring, and a lot. It's tiring to smile when everything inside you screams for help. It's tiring to make plans as a couple and realize that only you are committed. It's tiring trying to maintain the connection when the other person has long since disconnected. And it's not that you didn't try, you tried everything. Dialogue, patience, empathy. He changed what he could, ignored what hurt, swallowed frogs, shaped himself, gave in. But there is a time when the soul asks for help, because you start to lose yourself. That woman full of energy, ideas, dreams, begins to fade away little by little, trying to sustain a relationship that can no longer sustain itself. And the worst thing is that, deep down, you know it's unbalanced, it's unfair. It's too heavy to go on like this. But then comes the guilt, the fear of giving up, the feeling of failure. And that only deepens the tiredness. You don't sleep well. You don't feel pleasure in simple things. You live automatically. The sparkle in your eyes disappears because all your energy is being sucked away to keep a connection alive that is no longer reciprocal. If you felt this way reading these words, if it seems like I'm describing exactly what's going on inside, comment below on the word exhausted. Because admitting tiredness is not a sign of weakness, it is a cry for help from your essence. It's the first step to stop emotionally violating yourself in the name of an idea of love that is no longer happening. And when you comment, you also send a message to your own heart. I am listening to myself. We were taught to endure, to be strong, to save the relationship alone. But who saves you? This question needs to be echoed, because when you recognize this emotional exhaustion, you begin to change. Start to recover your self-love, respect yourself, set limits. The tiredness you feel is legitimate, it is valid, and it needs to be taken seriously. There's no point in continuing to insist on something that only consumes you. You deserve more than that. It deserves lightness, reciprocity, true presence. And this all starts when you choose to stop pretending that everything is okay. Today, perhaps, is the day to start taking care of yourself. And now, after so much wear and tear, so much trying, so much tiredness, what is still between you? When you close your eyes and think about this relationship, what do you really feel? Is there still admiration? That sincere look of respect, of pride in who the other person is? Or what remained was just the memory of when this once existed? It's difficult to face this question, I know, but it is necessary. Because sometimes we stay in a relationship out of inertia, out of habit, out of fear of change, and we don't even realize that the feeling that sustains everything is no longer love, but rather attachment. And attachment is treacherous because it disguises itself as affection, emotional dependence, loyalty. But deep down, it just keeps you stuck in something that might not even be good for you anymore. It's time to look with courage and sincerity. What is still alive between you? Is there companionship, that real desire to build something together, to walk side by side even when the road is difficult? Or are you just sharing a roof with someone who no longer shares their life with you? And if the answer is painful, that's okay. Sometimes what's left still has value. Sometimes there is still love, but it is muffled by the accumulation of hurt, by the tiredness of not being reciprocated, by the fear of saying what you feel. In these cases, it is worth trying to rescue, rebuild, and talk more truthfully. But there are times when you look honestly, you realize that what's left is just habit. That automatic routine, that presence that is there but doesn't participate, that we that became just me trying. And then comes the hardest part, differentiating what is still a feeling from what has become emotional survival. Because no one wants to end a beautiful story. We want it to work out. We want to remember what was good and believe that it can be again. But for that to happen, you both need to be willing. And often you look around and see someone who has already given up. They just haven't said it out loud yet. And it hurts. It hurts to admit that the other person no longer feels the same way. But it hurts even more to hide behind hopes that only exist within you. Therefore, before deciding anything, before following or letting go, you need to look honestly at what is left. Do you have respect? Do you want to? Is there an exchange? Or is there just silence, heartache, and a love that you feel alone? If this is the moment you are living in, trying to understand what is still true, trying to separate love from illusion, comment below on the word remained. Because this is more than a comment, it is an act of courage. It's your heart asking for clarity. And when you allow yourself this type of reflection, you begin to free yourself, not necessarily from a person, but from the idea that you need to be content with little. You start to remember who you are, what you deserve, how much you're worth, and realize that continuing only makes sense if there is reciprocity, mutual will, real connection. Otherwise, you're just trying to keep alive a story that was once beautiful, but now makes you bleed. And no one deserves to live in a relationship where love became a memory and the present became a prison. You are not alone in this feeling, and here is a safe space to feel, think, and if necessary, start over. Because what's left, yes, may have value, but you also need to ask yourself, is what's left enough for me? There's a very fine line between the routine of a mature relationship and the emotional disconnection that weakens any bond. And sometimes we are wrong. It confuses comfort with coldness, stability with indifference. The relationship enters an automatic mode where gestures are repeated, conversations are always the same, and the two live as if they were fulfilling tasks, not building a life together. It's like sharing the same space, but with distant hearts. The bed remains the same, but the touches have lost their intention. The days go by and it seems like you just coexist, like roommates who respect each other, but no longer look for each other. And that's where the danger lies, when silence begins to occupy the space that was previously filled by laughter, deep conversations, and looks that spoke without words. And the question begins to arise deep in the soul. Do we still love each other, or have we just learned to get along? Because it is possible to love and feel distant. It is possible to still have affection, remember the good times, love well, and at the same time feel alone next to who should be your partner. When this happens, it's time to stop and reflect. What is happening between us? Are we just living in the natural phase of routine, where the new gives way to the known, but there is still a desire to surprise, to care, to get closer? Or are we already experiencing a silent disconnection, where the emotional bond has broken and what remains is just the practicality of coexistence? Starting over is totally possible when there is still the will, the desire to look again, to listen carefully, to relearn how to love within the reality that has been constructed. But this requires effort on both sides. When only one person wants it, the fresh start becomes wear and tear. Now, if you both realize that there is still affection and intention, even if extinguished, it is worth trying to rekindle that flame. No relationship escapes routine, but what differentiates a lively relationship from a lukewarm one is how much people care about maintaining the connection. But when what exists is just habit, formality, physical presence without emotional presence, perhaps the best choice is to follow different paths. Because living next to someone without connection is a silent form of loneliness. You feel like you are accompanied, but there is a lack of presence. There's a lack of listening. There's a lack of exchange. There's a lack of that vibration in your chest, of knowing that there is someone there who really cares about how you feel. And no one deserves to live like this, suffocating their own emotions to maintain a facade of stability. Sometimes, separating is not giving up. It is freeing yourself. It's giving yourself the chance to feel alive again, truly loved, whole within a relationship, even if, in the beginning, that means being alone. Because the worst loneliness is the one we feel even when we are accompanied. And if you felt all of this throughout this video, if you realize that you are living more as a colleague than as a partner, comment here the word disconnection. This simple gesture is already a way of saying, I can hear myself. It's a step towards looking at yourself honestly again, and perhaps understanding that you deserved more presence, more truth, more real love. And when you recognize this, you begin to write a new story, more conscious, lighter, more yours. There is a moment in a relationship when we realize that we are trying alone, and it's not for lack of love nor for lack of will. It is precisely because you love too much that you insist, propose changes, try to understand what you can do better. You read, study, talk, adapt, you grow, emotionally waiting for the other person to come along, but they don't. And then it starts to hurt, because relationships cannot be saved alone. When only one is willing to reinvent themselves, to evolve, to work for the relationship, it is a sign that the other has already settled down. Or worse, they have already decided to leave, but are still there, out of cowardice, out of habit, out of fear of confrontation. And you, with a heart full of hope, wear yourself out day after day, thinking that the problem is yours, that if you change a little more, maybe he will truly choose you again. But real love doesn't make us feel small. True love is a construction for two. It is mutual delivery. It is a partnership that doesn't let you carry everything alone. And maybe you became the best version of yourself within this relationship. And even then, it wasn't enough for him. Not because you're not amazing, but because he's not there with you anymore. He is physically, but emotionally, distant. And that is one of the biggest emptiness someone can feel, being with someone who has already given up, but didn't have the courage to admit it. And you notice it in the details, in the lack of conversation, in the absence of interest, in the way everything you propose seems to be drama, exaggeration, or more of the same. But what he doesn't understand is that for you, it's still love. It's still possible. And that makes you insist. But this unilateral effort drains your energy, your joy, your shine. You start to lose yourself in the relationship. You start to think that asking for reciprocity is being too demanding. And it isn't. You are not asking for anything more than the minimum. To be loved with the same intensity that you love. To be cared for with the same zeal that you care. To be chosen with the same courage that you have to stay and fight. If you feel like you're trying for both, comment here the word alone. Because this outburst could be the beginning of a turning point. A moment to look inside and recognize that no matter how much love there is, it needs to come from both sides. Love does not survive just with good intentions on one part. No matter how much you dedicate yourself, if the other person is not willing to accompany you in the process of growth and reconstruction, you will always feel insufficient. And that's not fair. You deserve a relationship where both people look each other in the eye and say, let's try again, together. You deserve presence, listening, emotional responsibility. And above all, you deserve to stop blaming yourself for trying with someone who no longer wants to try with you. There comes a time when self-love needs to speak louder, because loving alone, no matter how beautiful it may seem, is a form of abandonment, not from others, but from yourself. And no one deserves to abandon themselves trying to save someone who has already died inside. What if, instead of ending, you chose to start over? But really start over, not pretending that everything is fine or sweeping problems under the rug. Start over with courage, with vulnerability, with that dedication that comes from the depths of the soul. Because the truth is that many couples lose each other, but that doesn't mean they need to lose each other forever. Sometimes what's missing isn't love, it's communication. It's stopping thinking that the other person has an obligation to guess what you feel. It's getting out of autopilot. It's looking people in the eye and saying, I still want to try, and you. Routine can be exhausting, conflicts can hurt, silences can drive us away. But if there is still love, and not just attachment or fear of loneliness, then there is still a chance. But it's important to remember, you can't start over without changing. You can't build something new with the same attitudes that destroyed the previous connection. Starting over requires emotional maturity, a willingness to listen, and, above all, the will of both parties. And that's when real dialogue comes in, not that superficial conversation full of hints and veiled accusations, but a soul-to-soul conversation, where you sit and without masks say everything you feel, everything that hurt you, everything you still want to live together, where everyone recognizes their flaws, but also their efforts, and, if possible, seeking professional help, such as couples therapy, can be a game changer. Because there are pains that we cannot heal alone, there are patterns that repeat themselves, and only listening to someone from the outside can break them. Therapy is not a sign of failure. It is proof that you care enough to try to make it work with more awareness. It is a safe space where feelings find a voice and where you can relearn how to love with more presence, more responsibility, more care. And along with this process, trying new ways of connecting can also be transformative. Doing something different together, reclaiming. Moments of lightness, traveling, laughing more, touching each other with intention, all of this feeds the bond that may be dormant, but not erased. Love, when it is real, does not disappear overnight. He may hide behind frustrations, he may remain silent out of fear, he may even appear to have died. But when there is a mutual desire to find this feeling again, it is reborn. In a new, more mature, deeper way. And sometimes what we really need is just a break to find ourselves again, to remember why it all started, of the promises made, of the dreams shared, of the partnership that was once strong. It is possible to relive all of this, yes, but only if there is presence. Only if you're both willing to relearn each other's love language. So if deep in your heart there is still hope, if you believe that this story can continue, but in a healthier, more lively way, comment here the word fresh start, because this simple gesture already shows that you haven't given up and that you're ready to try again, but in a new way. Sometimes starting over with the same person can be even more beautiful than starting from scratch with someone else, because the love that survives storms, when well cared for, blooms stronger than ever. There comes a time when the answer you are waiting for does not come in the form of words. It comes in silence. In the silence of gestures, in the absence of effort, in the lack of reciprocity. Because what is not said, the body screams, and you feel it. You feel when you are no longer a priority, when your feelings are ignored, when your attempts at conversation turn into walls. The most painful thing is realizing that you no longer need direct confirmation to understand what is happening. You realize it on a daily basis. In the way he no longer asks how your day was, how he avoids deep conversations, how he prefers his cell phone to your hug. Silence turns into a brutal response because it makes it clear that you are trying to connect with someone who has long since disconnected, and yet you insist because you still have love. But here comes the doubt. Does this love drive you or paralyze you? Because love that paralyzes is not home, it is emotional prison. And the worst prison is the one you don't even see you're in, because you got used to crumbs thinking you were taken care of. And it is exactly at this point that many women reach the limit. Not because love ended, but because loving each other started to hurt more than it was missed. The lack of response, apathy, neglect, all of this undermines your self-esteem. And then you start to wonder, why am I insisting on someone who doesn't even make an effort for me? And perhaps this question is the most important of all, because it comes from clarity. The clarity that comes when you stop waiting for someone else to save you, tell you what to do, prove how you feel. The clarity that appears when you start to listen to your own silence. That moment when you look in the mirror and recognize the woman who is there, tired but strong, wounded but whole, discouraged but ready to get up, because sometimes the other person's silence only echoes what you already know, but haven't yet had the courage to accept. So if you got this far, comment on the word clarity, because that word could be the beginning of your decision. And deciding, in this case, is not just about staying or going, it's about choosing yourself, choosing the peace that comes after the internal noise, choosing the lightness of no longer needing to beg for love, because when you find clarity within yourself, no doubt outside has the strength to hold you back.